Diversity in the Classroom by Jennifer Leatherman. Diversity, the difference between every student. Students are diverse in so many ways, from ethnicity to gender to race to ability to economic levels and many more. Every classroom has multiple forms of diversity, whether we realize it or not. It is so important for educators to recognize these different forms of diversity and adapt a teaching plan that works best for it. Let's take a closer look at some of the different types of diversity you can have in your classroom. Diversity in culture, ethnicity, and race. Diversity can be present in the form of culture and ethnicity. These two words are words that people get mixed up all the time. They are actually very different words, although they seem similar. Culture is a system of solutions to unlearned problems, as well as of learned problems and their solutions, acquired by members of a recognizable group and shared by them. The term ethnicity refers to groups formed around national heritage, as well as the distinct set of customs, a language system, beliefs, values, and tradition. Cultures and ethnicity can go hand in hand, but they are actually different. Ethnicity is a more developed aspect of culture. It is important that teachers do not discriminate against any race, ethnicity, or culture. Teachers must make adjustments if they feel discrimination is a problem in their classroom. Forming random groups for projects is a way to get all of the different races, ethnicities, and cultures interacting together in your classroom. Diversity in language. You will also find diversity in language in most classrooms. Not every student speaks English as a first language. Programs such as ESL, which stands for English as a Second Language, are put in place in schools to help students learn English. These programs are especially helpful because they allow all of the different students to communicate with each other despite the language barrier that might exist between them. Educators should strive to break any language barrier that might exist between the students so that they can work together in a more conducive environment. Diversity in socioeconomic class. Diversity can also exist in socioeconomic class. Socioeconomic classes include the low class, the middle class, and the upper class. Some students are members of the low class, a family that may be struggling from day to day just to make ends meet. Other students belong to families that are financially stable and do not have to worry about food, clothing, or money. It is important for teachers to recognize the different social classes of their students and be sure to do whatever it takes to make those students fit in with the rest of the classes. We should teach our students to look past socioeconomic status and focus on the task at hand, providing the best education possible for every student. Diversity in gender is another important thing to remember. Some schools are gender specific, having all boys or all girls in a class. Other schools are co-ed. It is important for both boys and girls to be equally involved in the classroom. Bias to a certain gender should never exist between a teacher and her students. As educators, we should strive to make sure both boys and girls have equal roles in our classes. Diversity in ability. Diversity in ability is a huge factor to be aware of as a teacher. Some students have physical disabilities. Special accommodations are sometimes required for these students to get to class on time and to be involved in the activities as the rest of their classmates in class. Other students have learning disabilities. They may struggle with what others find is a simple task. We must be aware of what each student's particular struggle is so that we can help them through that struggle. Some students are considered gifted and talented. These students may require extra work in order to feel like they are being challenged in school. Otherwise, they may get bored with school and their grades could suffer. The chart shows the percentages of the different types of disabilities by category in schools today. Diversity in learning styles is one of the most important forms of diversity to an educator. There are three main learning styles represented in a classroom typically: visual learning, auditory learning, and kinesthetic learning. Visual learning occurs when a student can learn by seeing the material. This can be done in PowerPoint presentations or through class handouts. Auditory learning occurs when students learn by hearing. Reading aloud or calling on someone in class to hear their answer are examples of auditory learning. Kinesthetic learning is learning by action or movement. These students want to do something with their hands in order to learn. Laboratory experiments are an example of kinesthetic learning. Each student learning style is different, and it is important for us to know our students well enough to know what their learning styles are. We must also be sure to teach lessons that will have a variety of activities so that each learning style will be represented. The following diagram is a diagram showing the different learning styles and how they cycle through to work together in order for students to learn. As you can see, there are so many different ways that students in a classroom can be diverse. It is so very important for educators to know all of these forms of diversity and to consider them when they are coming up with lesson plans for each class. We must be sure to include all the different forms of diversity in our lesson plans so that each student can learn to the best of their ability. A special thanks in this project goes out to Emily Griffin.